My name is Elias, and I get paid to walk into places that most people spend their entire lives trying to avoid. You won't find my job title on LinkedIn. Officially, I'm a structural risk assessor, or a site clearance consultant, depending on which tax form I'm filing that year. Unofficially, I'm the guy they call when a property developer buys an old asylum and the construction crew refuses to go inside because they hear screaming in the basement. I'm the guy who checks the derelict factory before the demolition team sets the charges, just to make sure no homeless folks, or anything else, are squatting in the shadows. I don't carry a proton pack. I don't chant Latin. I carry a heavy-duty flashlight, a crowbar, a first aid kit, and a very specific set of rules that keep me breathing. It's a lonely life, but it pays well. The real estate market is booming, and nobody wants their luxury condo project halted because someone found a cursed room in the foundation. They pay me to go in first, verify it's empty, and give the all clear. Sometimes it is empty. Just rats and rot. Other times, well, that's why I have the rules. I don't work alone. My partner is a 70-pound Belgian Malinois named Rusty. Rusty is a retired K-9 unit, washed out of the force because of a leg injury he took during a bust. He has a slight limp when it rains, but his nose is still sharper than any sensor money can buy. He doesn't bark at squirrels. He doesn't chase balls. He watches. He listens. And if Rusty refuses to walk through a doorway, I don't walk through it either. That's the first thing you learn in this business: trust the dog. Humans rationalize fear. Dogs just react to it. I'm telling you this because I've seen a lot of amateur explorers lately. Kids with GoPros and zero survival instincts breaking into places that have been sealed for a reason. I see them on YouTube, laughing in hallways where people died screaming. They think it's a game. They think if they turn off the camera, the scary stuff stops. It doesn't. So if you're thinking about exploring that old house at the end of your street, or if you just like hearing about the things that live in the dark, listen close. I have 4 rules. I've followed them for 10 years, and I'm still here. The people who broke them aren't. Let's start with rule number 1. Close every door you open. This sounds like basic manners, right? Like something your mom taught you so you wouldn't let the heat out. In my line of work, it's not about the draft. It's about containment. When you enter a space that has been abandoned for decades, a space that has been sitting in silence, festering, it develops a pressure. You can feel it when you walk in. The air is heavy. The dust hangs suspended. It's like the building is holding its breath. When you open a door, you are breaking a seal. You are changing the ecosystem of that room. If you leave that door open behind you, you are creating a path. A flow. And trust me, you do not want to give whatever is inside a clear path to follow you out. I learned this rule from my mentor, a guy named Silas. Silas was an old-school scrapper who had been clearing buildings since the 80s. He was missing 2 fingers on his left hand and never talked about how he lost them. One night, we were clearing out an old boarding school in upstate New York. Place had been shut down in the 50s after a tuberculosis outbreak. It was a massive brick structure, rotting from the inside out. Our job was to map the basement levels for asbestos removal. We were 3 levels down. The air smelled like wet copper and mold. Rusty, he was a puppy then, on his first few jobs, was pacing nervously, whining low in his throat. "Check the boiler room," Silas told me. "I'll check the storage." I opened the heavy iron door to the boiler room. It groaned on rusted hinges. I stepped inside, flashlight sweeping the darkness. Pipes, cobwebs, ancient coal dust. Nothing unusual. I turned to leave. The door was heavy, and I was lazy. I didn't pull it shut all the way. I left it cracked, maybe 3 inches. Just enough so I wouldn't have to heave it open again if I needed to come back. I walked down the hall to meet Silas. "All clear," I said. Silas looked past me. His face went pale. "Did you close the door, Elias?" "Mostly." I shrugged. "Go back," he hissed. "Close it. Latch it. Now." I thought he was being dramatic, but I went back. As I approached the boiler room, I heard a sound. It wasn't a mechanical sound. It wasn't the building settling. It was the sound of a wet, slapping footstep. Slap. Drag. Slap. Drag. Coming from inside the boiler room. The room I had just verified was empty. I froze. My flashlight beam hit the door. It was still cracked 3 inches. But as I watched, the crack began to widen. Slowly. Smoothly. Like someone was pulling it from the other side. Rusty let out a snarl that sounded like a chainsaw starting up. He lunged forward, not at the door, but in front of me, pushing me back. "Close it!" Silas roared from down the hall. I didn't think. I threw my weight against the iron door. It slammed shut with a deafening clang. I threw the latch. Bam! Something hit the door from the inside. Hard. The iron vibrated against my chest. Bam! It hit again. Harder this time. Dust rained down from the ceiling. Then silence. I stood there, panting, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I looked at Silas. He didn't say, "I told you so." He just nodded, lit a cigarette, even though we were in a basement, and said, "Whatever is in there stays in there. That's the deal. We don't invite them into the hallway." We finished the job, but we never went back into that room. And when we left the building that morning, I made sure to close and lock the front door. I even put a padlock on the gate. Since then, I've become obsessive. If I open a cabinet, I close it. If I lift a hatch, I seal it. If I walk through a door, I shut it behind me until I hear the click. It's not just about keeping things in. It's about creating barriers. It's about defining your space versus their space. I've seen footage from other explorers, the ones who go missing. You watch their videos, and you see it. They walk through a house, leaving every door wide open behind them. They create a tunnel. A funnel. And then, when they turn around to run, there's nothing stopping whatever was waking up in the attic from coming right down the stairs after them. So, rule number 1, close the door. It might be the only thing standing between you and something that has been waiting a very long time for a way out. This one is harder than you think. Human beings are social creatures. We are wired to respond. When we hear our name, we turn our heads. When we hear a cry for help, we move toward it. It's instinct. It's empathy. In my line of work, empathy gets you killed. The thing about abandoned places is that they echo. Sound travels weirdly through empty pipes and hollow walls. You hear dripping water, and it sounds like footsteps. You hear wind, and it sounds like whispering. But sometimes, you hear something that isn't the wind. I call it the echo. Some of the old-timers call it the mimic. I don't care what name you give it, as long as you understand what it does. It listens. It learns. And then it calls. I learned this rule the hard way, and it cost me the best partner I ever had before Rusty. His name was Mark. Mark was a structural engineer. Smart guy, skeptical to a fault. He didn't believe in ghosts or demons. He believed in load-bearing walls and tensile strength. We were hired to inspect a sprawling Victorian mansion in Ohio. The place had been empty for 40 years. The local kids called it the Whispering House. It was a standard job. We split up to cover more ground. Mark took the second floor. I took the ground level. We had walkie-talkies. "Radio check." Mark's voice crackled. "You there, Elias?" "Loud and clear," I replied. "Watch your step on the landing. Wood looks rot soft." "Copy that." I was in the kitchen, checking the plumbing fixtures when I heard it. "Elias?" It was Mark's voice. Coming from the basement door. I frowned. The basement door was behind me. Mark was upstairs. I grabbed my radio. "Mark? Did you come down?" "Negative." The radio crackled. "I'm in the master bedroom. Found a raccoon nest. It smells terrible up here." I stared at the basement door. "Okay. I thought I heard you. Must be the acoustics." Mark laughed. Spooky house, right? I went back to work. 5 minutes later, I heard it again. Louder. Elias! Help me! It was Mark. It was definitely Mark. The pitch, the cadence, the slight rasp in his voice. He sounded terrified. And it was coming from the basement. I ran to the door. I put my hand on the knob. Rule 1, my brain screamed. Don't open it. But it was Mark. He was screaming for help. Maybe he fell through the floor? Maybe he found a way down and got trapped. I keyed the radio. Mark! Mark, report! Static. Then, through the radio, I heard Mark say, I'm right here, Elias. Why are you shouting? I froze. Where are you? Top of the stairs. Looking down at you. I looked up. Mark was leaning over the banister on the second floor, waving his flashlight at me. He was fine. But the voice behind the basement door screamed again. Elias! Please! It hurts! Help me! It was a perfect recording of Mark's voice. But now that I listened closely, now that I knew the real Mark was upstairs, I could hear the wrongness in it. It was too flat. Too looped. Like someone playing a soundbite over and over. Do not come down! I shouted up to Mark. Do not move! Mark looked confused. What is it? Something is in the basement, I said. And it sounds like you. Mark, being the skeptic, laughed. Echoes, man. Pipes carrying sound. Let's check it out. Before I could stop him, he started coming down the stairs. I'm not afraid of a noise. He walked past me to the basement door. Mark, don't, I warned. I had my hand on my crowbar. Rusty, who was waiting in the truck that day, thank God, wasn't there to warn us. It's just air pressure, Mark said confidently. He opened the door. Darkness. Smelling of wet earth and copper. Hello? Mark called out. From the darkness, a voice answered. Not Mark's voice this time. It was my voice. I'm down here, Mark. I fell. Come get me. It sounded exactly like me. Calm. Reassuring. Mark hesitated. He looked at me, standing right next to him. Then he looked into the dark. His brain couldn't process it. He saw me, but he heard me down there. And the voice down there sounded hurt. Mark, I whispered. That isn't me. Close the door. But Mark was an engineer. He wanted to solve the problem. He leaned in. Is someone down there? Is this a joke? The voice changed. It stopped being me. It stopped being Mark. It became a sound that I can only describe as the noise of 1,000 dry leaves skittering across pavement. A dry, rasping, hungry sound. And then Mark was yanked. He didn't trip. He didn't slip. Something grabbed him by the ankle and pulled him into the dark with such force that his fingernails gouged grooves into the doorframe. He screamed. A real scream this time. Raw and blood-curdling. I lunged for him. I grabbed his shirt. But the force pulling him was immense. It felt like playing tug-of-war with a hydraulic press. Elias! He shrieked. It's got me! It's got... His shirt tore. I fell backward. Mark vanished into the dark. I heard him tumble down the stairs. Thud. 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 Then silence. Mark! I screamed. I pointed my flashlight down. The beam cut through the dust. The stairs were empty. The basement floor was empty. Just concrete and old boxes. There was no sign of Mark. No blood. No body. Just silence. And then, from the far corner of the basement, a voice spoke. Elias! Help me! It hurts! It was Mark's voice. But it wasn't coming from a mouth. It sounded like it was coming from the walls themselves. I slammed the door. I locked it. I nailed it shut with boards I found in the kitchen. I ran out of that house and called the police. They searched. They brought dogs. They tore up the basement floor. They found nothing. Mark was gone. Listed as a missing person. The police assumed he ran off, or we had a fight and I killed him and hid the body somewhere else. I was questioned for weeks, but they had no evidence. I know what happened. He answered the call. He engaged with it. He gave it permission to acknowledge him. Since then, I keep my radio on a secure channel. And if I hear my name called from a room I know is empty, I don't say, "Hello?" I don't say, "Who's there?" I turn around. I walk away. And I close the door behind me. Because if you answer the echo, you become part of the conversation. And that is a conversation that never ends. This sounds poetic, like something you'd read in a mindfulness book. It's not. It's practical. It's biological. Nature is noisy. Even in abandoned places, there is life. Crickets chirp. Birds sing. Mice scurry in the walls. Boards settle. Wind whistles. There is a constant, low-level hum of existence. When that hum stops, when the birds go quiet, when the crickets cease, when the wind seems to die mid-gust, you are in danger. Nature knows when a predator is nearby. It holds its breath. This is why I bring Rusty. Rusty is my biological alarm system. He hears things I can't. He smells shifts in the ozone that signal a storm, or something worse, long before I see the clouds. But even Rusty gets spooked by the silence. I was at a diner off Route 66 a few years ago. It was 3 a.m. I was between jobs, driving from a site in Arizona to one in New Mexico. The diner was one of those places that smelled of bleach and old coffee. I was the only customer, except for a trucker sitting 2 stools down. He looked like he'd been on the road since the Reagan administration. Leathery skin, eyes that had seen too much white line fever. He saw Rusty lying under my stool and nodded. "Good dog," he rumbled. "Smart to keep him close." "He's the best," I agreed. The trucker swirled his coffee. "You drive the night shift?" "Sometimes. I inspect old buildings." He paused. He looked at me, really looked at me. "You ever hear the quiet?" I put my burger down. "The silence?" "Yeah. I know it." He nodded grimly. "I was driving through the desert last month. Near the painted forest. Middle of the night. Radio was playing. Engine was humming. Then nothing." "The radio died?" I asked. "No," he said. "The sound died. The engine was running. I could feel the vibration, but I couldn't hear it. The wind stopped. The tires on the asphalt, silent. It was like someone hit the mute button on the world." He leaned in. "And then I saw him. Standing on the shoulder. Just a shape. Tall. Gray. No face. Just standing there. Watching the truck go by. I felt a chill. "What did you do?" "I didn't brake," he whispered. "I floored it. I drove until the sound came back. Took 10 miles. 10 miles of absolute silence. When the radio static finally kicked back in, I pulled over and threw up." He looked at his hands. They were trembling. "If you hear the quiet, son, don't stop. Don't look. Just run." I thought about his story a week later. I was inspecting a derelict factory in Detroit. It was a massive auto plant, rusting into the earth. Rusty was trotting ahead of me, tail wagging. The place was full of pigeons. You could hear them cooing and fluttering in the rafters. It was noisy. Safe. We were on the catwalk, 30 feet above the assembly floor. I was taking photos of the roof trusses. Suddenly, Rusty stopped. He didn't growl. He didn't whine. He just froze. His ears went flat against his skull. He dropped onto his belly, pressing himself into the metal grate of the walkway. And then I noticed. The pigeons had stopped. Hundreds of birds silent. The wind that had been rattling the broken windows, gone. The distant traffic noise from the highway, gone. The silence. It pressed against my eardrums like water. I looked down at the assembly floor. In the center of the vast, empty space, The shadows seemed to be thickening, pooling, like ink spilling across the concrete. And in the middle of that pool of shadow, something was standing. It looked like the thing the trucker had described. Tall, gray, elongated. It had no features, but I could feel it looking up at me. Rusty started to crawl backward. He didn't turn around. He just scooted back, keeping his eyes on the thing below. I followed his lead. I didn't run. Running triggers the chase response. I backed away, slow and steady, matching Rusty's pace. The thing down there didn't move. It just watched. We backed all the way to the fire exit. I pushed the door open. The sound of the city rushed back in, sirens, cars, wind, so loud it almost hurt. I slammed the door and we ran. We ran until we got to the truck. I marked that factory as structurally unsound in my report. I didn't lie. The structure of reality in there was definitely unsound. So, rule number 3, if the world goes quiet, you leave. Do not investigate. Do not try to find the source. The source is finding you. And if your dog stops wagging his tail, trust him. This is the rule people laugh at the most. Bloody Mary, they say. Candyman? They think it's a sleepover game. It's not a game. Mirrors are surfaces. They reflect light. But in a place where there is no light, where the darkness is absolute, what exactly are they reflecting? I learned this rule in a dead shopping mall in Ohio. You know the kind. Built in the 90s, abandoned in the 2000s. Skylights covered in grime, dead palm trees in the atrium, fountains filled with trash. It's a liminal space, a place between places. I was hired to clear it before demolition. There were rumors of kids breaking in, starting fires. My job was to sweep the stores and secure the entrances. Rusty and I were in the old department store. The mirrors were everywhere. Columns clad in mirrors. Changing rooms with 3-way mirrors. Cosmetic counters with lighted vanity mirrors that hadn't been lit in years. It was late afternoon, but inside it was dusk. My flashlight beam danced across the glass surfaces, creating a disorienting hall of mirrors effect. Every time I turned, I saw a flash of movement, my own reflection, catching up to me. We reached the back of the store, near the loading docks. There was a large, floor-to-length mirror leaning against the wall. It was cracked down the middle. Rusty stopped. He stared at the mirror. He didn't growl. He just stared. I walked closer. "What is it, boy?" I looked into the glass. I saw myself, dirty jacket, hard hat, tired eyes. I saw Rusty sitting beside me. I saw the empty racks behind us. And then I saw the third figure. Standing behind my reflection, deep in the glass, was a man. He was wearing a uniform, maybe a security guard from the mall's heyday. But his face was wrong. It was blurred. Smudged. Like a thumbprint on a wet photo. I spun around. There was no one behind me. Just empty air. I looked back at the mirror. The figure was closer now. Right over my shoulder. And then my reflection, the Elias in the mirror, smiled. I wasn't smiling. My mouth was hanging open in terror. But the mirror Elias was grinning. A wide, predatory grin that showed too many teeth. Rusty barked. A sharp, warning bark that snapped me out of it. I raised my crowbar and smashed the mirror. The glass shattered, raining down onto the linoleum. The grin vanished. I didn't stick around to see if it would come back in the shards. Since then, I cover mirrors. If I enter a room with a mirror, I drape a cloth over it. Or I turn it to the wall. Or I break it. 7 years of bad luck is better than whatever was smiling at me from that glass. If you are exploring an abandoned house and you see a mirror in a dark hallway, do not look into it. Do not use it to check behind you. Because sometimes, the reflection decides it doesn't want to be a reflection anymore. It wants to be the original. So, those are the rules. Close the door. Don't answer. Listen to the silence. Don't look in the mirror. Simple enough, right? I've followed them religiously. Rusty and I have cleared hundreds of sites. We've made good money. We've slept soundly. Until last week. I got an email. No subject line. Just coordinates and an attachment. The coordinates pointed to a remote area in the Alaskan wilderness, near the Tongass National Forest. The attachment was a police report. A group of 5 hikers, experienced, well-equipped, had gone missing 3 weeks ago. Search and rescue found their campsite. Tents slashed. Food untouched. No bodies. But they found a GoPro. The email included a video file recovered from the camera. I shouldn't have watched it. Rule number 0, don't get involved in things that aren't your job. But curiosity is a disease, and I'm terminal. I clicked play. The footage was shaky. Night vision. The hikers were huddled in a tent. They were whispering. "Do you hear it?" one girl asks. She looks terrified. "It's just the wind," a guy replies, but his voice cracks. "It's not the wind," she whispers. "It's calling my name." Then, from outside the tent, a voice speaks. It's clear. It's loud. It sounds exactly like the girl who is speaking. "Sarah? Are you in there? It's me. Open the door." Sarah, the girl in the tent, covers her mouth to stifle a scream. The camera pans to the tent zipper. It starts to slide down. Slowly. From the outside. Then the video cuts to static. I sat back in my chair. The echo. The mimic. It wasn't just in basements anymore. It was out in the wild. The email had a text body below the attachment. "We know what you do. We know you cleared the Whisper House. We know about Mark. We need you to go in. Not to rescue them. They are gone. But to close the door. There is a cabin out there. An old trapper's lodge. That's where it lives. Seal it. Name your price." I looked at Rusty. He was sleeping by the fire, twitching in a dream. I should delete the email. I should block the sender. I should take a nice, safe job inspecting a strip mall in Florida. But I keep thinking about Mark. I keep thinking about that voice in the basement. Help me. It hurts. If this thing in Alaska is related, if it's the same entity, or a cousin, maybe I can find answers. Maybe I can find peace. Or maybe I'm breaking rule number 0. I replied to the email. "I'll do it. Double my rate. And I need a helicopter drop. I'm packing my gear now. Extra batteries. Reinforced locks. Mirrors covers. And plenty of treats for Rusty. We leave tomorrow. If I don't post again, well, you know the rules. Don't come looking for me. And if you hear my voice calling for help from the dark, don't answer." Fast forward to today. I'm recording this from a satellite phone. We found the cabin. Rusty is barking at the door. The birds have stopped singing. And inside I can hear Mark calling my name. I'm going in. Wish me luck. And remember the rules. Guys, if you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell icon so you don't miss out on more fascinating stories. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there right now, and don't forget to share your thoughts on this story. I really want to know what you think. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.